battery. Okay, so you'll just you can either hit the space bar. Oh, you can either hit the space bar or the arrows. Either one. Does that work?
That works. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna get started here. You ready?
Yeah. Do we need any, where do we need to be?
You can just hang out wherever you want. I'm gonna do a couple introduction remarks and then I'll introduce you. Wait, no, I'm gonna introduce Chris first
Yes.
and then
Yes.
and then you'll go after that.
Yeah.
And I'll switch between the presentations. All right. Welcome, everybody, to our January Lunch and Learn. And thanks very much to Solar Alliance for setting this up. So if you've not been to Green Spaces before, welcome. I'm Michael Walton. I'm the executive director. Our mission here at Green Spaces is advancing the sustainability of living, working, and building in the Chattanooga region. And we couldn't do any of our work without you. Basically, everything that we do here as an organization, as a nonprofit, is only because of the support that we receive from the community. We're really excited about the upcoming Chattanooga Green Prix. This is an electric car race that we do with elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. You can actually see one of the elementary school cars in the back here. And it is actually going to be on St. Patrick's Day this year. So March 17th and 18th, it'll be a Friday, Saturday. So keep an eye out for that. And if you're interested in sponsoring the Green Prix, either helping us with spare parts, supporting the teachers. Is something wrong?
The slides aren't.
Oh, okay. Looks like our slides are not advancing. Stop share. Let's see. Gotta love Zoom. Share. All right. How's that?
Yeah, switching that slide to see if it'll go.
Wait, let me expand this. There we go. Yeah, it's going. Okay. So we're really excited about the evolution of the integrated community sustainability plan for Chattanooga. So this Thursday at the Bethlehem Center, the city is going to be presenting their draft of the climate action plan, largely based on the integrated community sustainability plan that we had over 100 people help develop over 2019 and 2020. So we're really excited that this is now about to go to city council, and we'll have the weight of the city behind it, but it's not just something that involves the city. It's going to be businesses, institutions, individuals that are all required to make these strategies happen. These are not just goals for the city government, it's goals for the whole community that we can all pitch in to help with. So if you want to learn more about that, please join us at the Bethlehem Center Thursday at 6 p.m. We also are back into doing our Empower workshops. So where's Francine? Is she here somewhere? Oh, there she is. So Francine is our new Empower program director. She also runs Empoderate, our Spanish language sister program of Empower. So we can do workshops that teach low cost and no cost strategies for lowering your electric bill in English or in Spanish, for community groups, other organizations, for businesses, for their employees. So reach out if you're interested in that, and come say hi to Baggy after the oh my gosh, to Francine Badgie after the lunch and learn. Green Leader, we just had our newsletter this morning. We talked about the growth in green jobs globally. Green Leader is a professional certificate offered through University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. So if you're interested in being a leader in sustainability in your business or organization, that's a great opportunity. And it's actually cheaper this year than it was last year. So come talk to us after that. One of the most important things this year in terms of announcements is that our Green Light Green Business certification program is now just part of Green Space's membership. So everybody that's a Green Spaces member has now full access to the Green Light program through an online platform that we developed last year. Thank you, Madison, our Director of Sustainability and Events, who worked with a team of interns to get that done and made that possible. Along those lines, thank you to our members, of which Solar Alliance is actually one and has been for a very long time. I think that's right, about 100 years, yeah. If you would like to become a member and get started on your sustainability journey, that starts at just $49 a month for a business or $10 a month for an individual. But I'm excited to hand the presentation over to Chris Battle, who's the area specialist for business programs for USDA. She's going to be talking about the USDA REAP grants, and then Harvey Abalada will be with the Vice President of Solar Alliance, will be talking about how they can help with that process. With that, I will hand it over to Chris.
Thank you so much.
This is the right one, right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you guys for coming out today, and we want to thank Solar Alliance for also inviting us to come speak today. Like Michael said, I'm Chris Battle with USDA Rural Development, the Rural Business Programs Area Specialist in the Chattanooga area office. So I'm going to be speaking about our REAP program today, Rural Energy for America. Thank you. And so if you wish to pursue this grant and you are within the local commuting area, you would work with me and Josh Wilkerson. He's our area director. You can see him in the back. He's handing out fact sheets for us today. Gives a little bit of an overview of this program that we're going to talk about. So you can take that home and have that to review as well on your own time. So a little bit about our program. Like I said, we call it REAP for short, but it's the Rural Energy for America program. It provides grants and guaranteed loan funding. It's a two-part grant. So we have renewable energy systems and we have energy efficiency improvements. And so those that qualified would be an agricultural producer or a rural small business. All right, let's dig a little bit into eligibility for applicants. So as you see on the left, if you're an ag producer, that would be an individual or entity that receives 51% or more of their gross income from ag production. And we've got some examples down there. One thing to note is that you could be located either in a rural area or an urban area by being an ag producer, okay? So that is something to note versus being a rural small business that can only be in a rural area. So with the rural small business, it must be for profit. We determine that based on some standard tables that SBA uses. A rural area would be no more than 50,000 in population. All right. So like I said, this grant is two-part. We've got renewable energy systems and energy efficiency improvements. We have minimum and maximum grant requests on those. So starting with the renewable energy systems, something similar to solar panels. The minimum grant on that will be $2,500. So an example would be having a project that's about $6,250, and you can receive up to 40% of your total project cost, total energy project costs in grant. So let's say you get $2,500 in grant, and then your total project cost was $6,250, and then you would cover the remaining of that. Okay. The maximum grant request is currently $1 million. So an example would be you having a $2.5 million project. So you can get up to $1 million in grant funds, and so that'd be your 40%. And then the remainder up to the $2,500 million would be what you would have to cover. energy efficiency improvements. An example of that would be like HVAC or changing out your windows. A minimum grant request on that is $1,500. The example of your project cost on that would be about $3,750. And so then you'd get the $1,500 in grant. The maximum request is $500, excuse me, $500,000, not $500, on the energy efficiency improvement. So that'd be about a $1.25 million project. Okay, so one thing to note is that you can use the program multiple times, but you can only have one application per fiscal year. Okay, so for example, you could have one renewable energy systems project and one energy efficiency improvement project for the year. Okay, and then you can have up to $1.5 million max in total grant assistance for the fiscal year. But you cannot have two renewable energy system project per fiscal year, if that makes sense. So one of each. You don't have to have both. You don't have to have solar panels and replacing your windows, but if you want to, you can. But they will be two separate applications and one of those each fiscal year, but you can come again the next year. We also have guaranteed loan funding. Okay, so this would be, let's say you didn't want it all covered in grant and you needed some assistance from a bank. Then you would go through the bank and it would be a loan. So it would be a loan through your lender, but then we would still give some grant funds to assist with paying for that. We can do a combination of grant and guaranteed loan, but we will only cover up to 75% of the total eligible project cost. So the other 25% will have to come from you guys or from a separate bank loan or something like that. The maximum loan on that is $25 million. And the minimum is $5,000. Oh, and also, let me go back. One thing to note on there that the terms are negotiated between you and the lender. So that is not something that USDA helps to negotiate for you guys. That will be based upon you and your lender. All right, we've got some examples of the technology. So with the energy efficiency, you could do lighting, heating, cooling, ventilation, fans, insulation, things like that. Some things that I've seen is like roofing insulation. I've seen a lot of just regular insulation, people replacing the windows, the doors. Those are probably the most common types of projects that people do. I've seen it on like a space like this, if somebody wants to come in and take out those windows and those doors and they replace that. A lot of times it will be upgrades that people are already looking to do. And so it's like, oh, you get a grant to help assist with that. So seen that a lot. It can be a huge help. And like I said, now we can do up to 40% of the total project cost in grant funds. So that's a huge plus. It used to be 25%. So now we can go up to the 40%. Okay. Renewable energy, the most common we see is solar, and Solar Alliance is a contractor that they will install and give you your technical review and things like that, kind of give you a breakdown, and Harvey will talk about that here shortly. That's probably the most common renewable energy example that we see here in Tennessee. But as you can see that there are also other options for projects. One thing to note is that the equipment must be commercially available. So it won't be anything new. It has to have been on the market for a year. Okay. So let's dig into eligible project costs. So we could, the grant can help pay for equipment. So, you know, the purchase and installing. It can be new or refurbished equipment. Cannot just be used. It needs to have some sort of warranty. It needs to be refurbished if you do not plan on using new equipment. Something very important is that it must be post-application construction and facility improvements. So if you have a project going on now we cannot fund it. You have to have already put in the application, got started on the process. So post-application construction, that is something very important. Must have an application in first before you begin construction, or will be ineligible. We could do retrofitting, so light retrofitting. We can pay for professional service fees, so that's to pay your contractors. We can pay for permits and license fees. There are lots of permits sometimes that have to be taken to be able to complete the project. Even extra meters, those are kind of costly, sometimes up to $500 I've seen. So just different things like that can be rolled into it. Working capital and land acquisition, that can only be done with the guaranteed loan, and that's with restrictions. So if you have a project like that, we'd have to get the details, look into it, and then make a determination on that. Okay, ineligible project costs, residential energy projects. So we cannot do solar panels or changing the windows and the doors, things like that on a home. If you have a home business, or if your business is located at the same facility that someone is residing in, most of the time it will be ineligible, but please contact us. Please don't make any moves on anything like that. You will have to have a separate meter if that is the case. Sometimes people, let's just say an accounting firm is in one building, part of the building is residential, part is the accounting firm. That makes it a little bit sticky because it's a residential energy project. It's located at the same facility. You will for sure have to have a second meter, but again, please contact us and we can let you guys know if that will be eligible or ineligible. Okay. We cannot pay for farm equipment. Like I said, used equipment unless it's refurbished and it has a warranty, and we cannot pay for vehicles. One thing to note, again, the pre-application construction, we have to have an application in to be able to fund it. We have some more items here, application and grant writer fees. We cannot pay for someone to put together your application. We can't pay for feasibility studies, different things like that, lines of credit, lease payments. One important thing is no payment to the applicant, business owner, beneficiary, or relative. If you have a business and you're qualified and you are installing let's say you're gonna have solar panels and you are a qualified installer and you have a staff and you're gonna install it on your building. We cannot make payments to you, as that is a conflict of interest, but we can make the payments, part of the grant can be paid for your workers. So that does get a little sticky. Again, we'd have to, go case by case, but can't be a conflict of interest and paying grant funds to the direct business owner if you are the business owner and you're installing the equipment. Okay. So deadlines, we have 2 deadlines for this program, October 31st and March 31st. The first deadline in our fiscal year is October 31st. And so this is for grant requests that are 20,000 or less. So your smaller projects. And you'll have to get the application in every year. It comes around every year by October 31st. The March 31st deadline is for your larger projects. So it'll be projects over 20,000. But let's say you had a project that falls under the 20,000 or less, you can still submit on that March 31st deadline. So March 31st is kind of a catch-all. It can be all applications, and October 31st is only for the small projects. If you wish to receive a guaranteed loan, applications are open all year long. All right. How to apply. So for those online, it's probably a little bit easier to copy the hyperlink. But we have an energy coordinator that works in our state office. His name is Chuck Morris. I'll have his contact information here at the end. He's the subject expert for our REAP program. Please feel free to contact him. You can contact him or myself and get application materials and resources if you need those as well. Okay, so we do have a USDA energy investment map. And again, for those online, it's probably a little bit easier to be able to click. But we have a map where it shows where USDA has invested in the United States. And on the legend, you can see how it has the different types of projects and how that maps with that map. So we have quite a bit of an investment throughout the country. It's quite impressive. We always are welcoming more applications. You know, we want to do as many projects as we can based on the amount of funding that we're getting from Congress. Okay, so here we have some contacts. Like I said, we have Josh Wilkerson, who is the area director for our Chattanooga and Cookeville offices, and myself. So there's our emails and our phone numbers. And then we also have Chuck Morris, who is the state energy coordinator. So we've got his email and his phone number. And then we've also got a hyperlink down there for those online, if you want to click to be able to see more information. They didn't get a fact sheet today, but you guys can click on that. So thank you. We do appreciate being able to present here today. Like I said, we're with USDA. You know, companies like Solar Alliance, we appreciate their partnership. Although we can't, you know, recommend specific contractors, we have those who are what we call, you know, frequent flyers, who are always very invested in our program, willing to present and put on events like this to help reach those in the community. So we appreciate their partnership and those other contractors who are also willing to work with us to help our community. So we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. Yeah, great presentation. A lot of really helpful information there. And I highly encourage you to use USDA as a resource. You know, make sure that your business qualifies, your project qualifies. And when you're ready to get the work done. So Harvey Avalada with Solar Alliance, like I said, Harvey with Solar Alliance, and then in previous iterations has been a long supporter of green spaces since I think the very beginning of our organization, certainly since I've been here since 2014. So really appreciate your support. Let me get your presentation up here. Does that look right?
Yeah.
All right. Take it away. Thanks, Harvey.
Thank you. I'm probably going to go a little bit off the reservation here, mostly because that's what I do. But first, I got to stick by this microphone. Is that the key? I don't know how much time do we actually have left? 12:30? Is that it? Okay. So can we just real quick just go around the table starting and just tell your name and just kind of a little bit why you're here and what you do? Just real quick. I haven't seen you in years. And Bill. Scenic Solar?
Yeah.
Jason Buzz, coming with the agricultural extension service.
Thank you.
I'm Bailey Michael Lee, and I work with Solar Alliance.
My name is Todd Channing.
Okay. All right. Scenic Sunny.
Can deal with Florida Energy, we utility scale, but I'm based in Chattanooga.
Okay, thank you. Okay, as the light's beaming in from the back, I'm getting blind, so.
I'm an apprenticeship. Yeah, thanks. So, and here is I especially people want to ask something, so I really care about parents.
Fantastic. On the back table, if you guys could introduce yourself. I think Michael.
Yeah.
And then we got Ann and
I'm director operating.
fantastic. So I think the biggest thing that we could take away from this is number one is USDA employees, their job is to get this money here in this community. It's about economic development. And so I think it's really important to get a relationship with your local reps, make sure they know the things that you're doing, because you'll be surprised. You know, there's so many places in a rural town that somebody's got to replace an air conditioner, or they got to put new windows in, or whatever. And all those things are eligible projects, and they don't think in terms of the USDA REAP grant and efficiency. So that's money. And what I want to say about that, it's money left on the table. This is a federal program. And so if we don't apply for that money in the state of Tennessee, that money is going to go to Kentucky. That money is going to go to California, which is the biggest taker, I guess, right? Is California and Iowa, I think still, I don't know if they're still up there, but you know, the thing is we are in a competition to get that money here. It is about economic development. So what I'm saying is the most important thing here is when you walk away from this talk, lunch and learn, is tell other people about it. Make sure they know about the reps here, make sure that they know about energy efficiency and energy production. And so the other thing I want to say is, I don't know if you guys have seen this in the paper and stuff, and you know, there's part of solar is getting a very difficult reputation with pink energy and power homes, and then also more recently Solar Titan. So they're kind of predatory companies that go out and, you know, they kind of prey on the elderly. And so it's giving solar a very difficult reputation. Design One is still around, still doing it. And so, you know, what I also want to say about companies like Solar Alliance or Scenic City, check references. We're legit companies. We all have great references. We have great clientele. We have old clientele. Bill and I have been here since the earth cooled, and been doing solar since the sun came up. And so we've got a lot of good case studies. And so, you know, you can talk to Bill Keener or Ted Wampler. And I want to tell you a little bit about economic development, and then we'll get to some applications and some numbers, right? So one of our oldest customers is Wampler's Farm Sausage. And so it's a great contrast that someday I'm going to come out with a sausage that's called Bill and Ted's Excellent Sausage. And it's going to be Bill Keener's free range hogs and carbon-free Wampler's Farm sausage and producing it. And we will have a Bill and Ted's Excellent Sausage. But, you know, Ted Wampler was really my first USDA customer. And so when we first put this project in, we did a 30 kW. That paid off in a very short amount of time, because at the time there was a state grant. The federal was actually a check. So it was like a direct pay. It wasn't a grant. It wasn't a grant. It was a direct pay, and it wasn't a tax credit. They actually wrote you a check. And then there was a state grant and the USDA. This job paid back. The payback was within 2 years, less than that. I would say probably a year and 4 months. Teddy will tell you 2 years and 6 months, because he's going to make me work for everything I do, right? So we get done with this project, and Ted Wampler says, hey, this isn't my money. This project's worth $180,000. I've got all my money back. This isn't my money. This is the federal government's money, and it's supposed to be creating jobs. We got to do a new job, right? So I was like, he goes, well, I want to do a megawatt. And so I went back and I did the numbers and I penciled them out, came back to Teddy, and I'm like, the $200,000 down payment and the tax credit, I cannot get a megawatt to cash flow. But what I can do is I can get 500 kW cash flow. Bingo, let's do it. So we do a 500 kW. Again, payback is one of those things that we'll talk about in the application, but payback, you know, I'm thinking it's paid back in 2 years. He's thinking it's paid back in 3, whatever. That's close enough for me. So we get that project done. He comes back and he says, Harvey, he was like, this money is not mine. Now he's got $2.3 million worth of value that he's leveraged from this little 30 kW solar project. He's got so his balance sheet, right, is going up. His equity in his company is going up, and it's through this funding. So he says, look, this isn't my money. We got to create jobs. And this is a true story. This is Ted Wampler. Bill can attest to this. His thinking is, this isn't my money, we got to do a new project. So we go and we do a gasification project. Well, gasification is producing energy through basically, it's almost like distilling wood, but I mean, you put it at high temperatures and it breaks down and it produces hydrogen, right? So we do this project, it's a 500 kW project. And I said, Ted, all these municipalities around here, they're getting rid of green waste and they're paying, I think it's the city of Chattanooga, and somebody could correct me if I'm wrong. I think the city of Chattanooga is paying about $35 a ton to dispose of green waste. So that green waste is actually going to Georgia. So that not only are they paying to get rid of it, they're shipping it. Now that might not be exactly true today, but that was definitely true 10 years ago. So, and I think it's probably pretty true. It might even be a little bit more that now. So I was like, Teddy, I think we can get a negative fuel cost because we can get paid. So instead of, them paying 35, let's have them pay us 10. Now we've got fuel. It's a negative fuel cost. So imagine going to the gas pump and then somebody paying you to fill up your car. That's just not going to happen in this particular case, right thing. So he says, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. I want to create jobs. I want you to go out and get contracts with farmers that grow switchgrass. I want to create jobs. I want it to be ongoing. I want to get off this merry-go-round. I'm going to put my $2 million into this thing as a deposit. And so all of a sudden he puts that in. Now, this wasn't a USDA project, but it was a federal treasury project, gets the payback, goes through this. But that's the kind of thinking. That's what we can do as a community and working together. We can build equity in our own state and our own businesses. And that's the purpose of this program, is to create jobs. And when you got people like a Bill Keener and a Wampler's Farm Sausage out there building a better community for ourselves, clean air and all that kind of things, you can't, I mean, that's just a win all the way around. So this program is super important. And like I said, you really need to make that relationship with Chris and Josh, let them know what you're doing. Jay, you're looking at developing a piece of property for, I don't know, housing or commercial, whatever it is, but now start thinking in terms of where can I develop that property? So I just bought a piece of property in Knoxville that is right over the line. So it's the city of Knoxville. It's a mile to get to all the bars and restaurants, but it's still in a rural area. So it's like, all I did was just move my focus and just be a little bit more forward thinking about how can I get myself in a position where I am eligible for the grant. And it starts with geography. So that's the first thing. The other thing I want to say is that on the USDA eligibility, obviously you can contact your office, or you can contact anybody at our office, and there's a USDA eligibility map. You go into that map, type in your address, and it'll come back and tell you if you're in the correct area. So it's the tools that you need to be aware of. And we can share all that, those different types of tools where you can start to look at your eligibility. And it's not a big deal. It's 2 seconds, but it's just a matter of knowing where it is and which menu item to select, because you can very easily go into the eligibility map. And there's 2 sections at the bottom in the commercial. The top section includes the REAP grant. The bottom section does not. Those eligibility maps are different. So if you click on the wrong map, you're going to get the wrong answer. So it's just a matter of education, right? So definitely look to that. The other thing I want to bring up before I forget about it is there is do we have that in this? I don't know whether we do or not. I'm off the reservation, but pathway lending. Has anybody heard of pathway lending here? Okay. Pathway lending is a very important program in the state of Tennessee. It's backed by the state. It's also backed by TVA. And so it's low interest loans for energy efficiency and also for energy production. So solar projects, geothermal, lighting, all those types of things are all eligible in the program. And this is the windfall right now in our state with pathway lending. They are not raising their interest rates. So you can get a 10-year at 5%, or you can get a 5-year at 2%. Well, just getting up in the morning, you've made money without even doing anything. So pathway lending is an important one. And so if you're all members of Green Spaces, you can find that through Michael if you forget about it, or again, contact us. But pathway lending is super critical in making some of these cash flow. Now, let's see, we're going to cover this. We already did that. Oh, we did that. Oh, there's our menu. And then there's the eligibility map. And that's a location. We need one more slide in there. But once you accept their terms, you're going to get 2 blocks. I'm going to get that slide in there, Ann. Are you eligible? We figured that one out. And Chris did a great job on all this stuff. Sam's number. Sam's number is the bane of my existence. So the first thing that we're going to do when eligibility is determine if you're eligible. And the second thing we're going to do is apply for your Sam's number. Why in 2023, right? It's 2000, it clicked over. We're in 23 and the Sam's number is still a nightmare. So I don't know, Bill, I'm sure we fought with the Sam's number back then, still the same fight, hadn't changed. So that is very important in getting that process rolling. Also on projects, again, notification, right? So you're working with your USDA rep, you want to start getting your letters of your help me with the word, huh? Yes, tribal letters. We want to send all our letters, get our environmental letters out as soon as we can while we're doing the application. So all these things can be happening simultaneously, but they can't help you if they don't know what you're doing. So again, communication is really critical. We went over eligibility. I want to get to some numbers, meters. So here's the thing, and this happens often. I can't even see over there. 15 minutes. Okay, great. So what Chris said about the meters, super important. Your meter is in your business name. I can't tell you how many people, probably myself included, start a business, you put the electricity very quickly, you put it in your name, you don't even think about it because it's here. That creates a problem. So make sure once you start this problem, go ahead. If it's a single meter, it is a commercial building, get it out of your name, make it easy for everybody and yourself, put it in the business's name, right? So those things are super important. The 51%, one way to ensure that is get yourself an LLC. Once you get an LLC, it's established. You don't have to prove the 51%. You don't have to do all those things. So LLCs, keeping the meters. So it's just a matter of keeping your books tight and clean. So eligible projects, we're gonna, we went through this. So biomass, geothermal, hydrogen, wind generations, solar. Solar is by far the easiest and probably most prevalent in the USDA grants. And we're going to go through that. I'm also going to brag a little bit about PowerShed. So PowerShed is a product that we developed with the University of Tennessee. And what it does is allow you remote power anywhere. And so it's 880 watts. It has 400 amp hours in batteries. And so essentially you can put power, so you could power, so it was designed for UT with the use of Husqvarna, Ambrosia, and Echo robotic mowers. And so they can run autonomously. So if picture the median of a highway, there's no electricity really easily accessible, or you're in an airport, you can't connect, you have to do everything a home run, very expensive. If you're at the end of the runway and you want power and you've got to mow in that area, you put a power shed out there, follows all the FAA rules, put a power shed out in the median. You're not driving out there and you've got a robotic mower. When it runs out of juice, it goes into the power shed, powers itself back up, goes back out, and does that. So that's patent pending. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm an inventor now, Michael. So I want to be introduced as an inventor. Yeah. So energy efficiency. Again, these are kind of, to me, low-hanging fruit, no-brainer stuff. You've got a small business, you're in a rural area, you're bound to need an air conditioner at some time. You're bound to need more insulation. You're bound to need a roof. So at that point, look to the USDA and work with those grants, because I mean, that, again, we want that money coming here, and those are just things that, that's, I mean, I don't look at solar as kind of Star Wars, or Star Wars is pretty old, right? That's a bad reference. Like my Captain Kangaroo reference. But at any rate, those things sound mundane, but it's money on the table. We need to bring it in the state of Tennessee. Inflation Act, obviously, it's kind of the wild, wild west. So there's a lot of things that are coming to the table, and I think a lot more will be happening. I want to say on the Inflation Act, are you guys familiar with the direct pay for the nonprofit? First time in my career that there's been nonprofits have had access to incentive money for renewable energy. So pretty exciting. And I would definitely share that with the nonprofit community. That doesn't have to be a rural area, it's just nonprofits. And so that's an exciting change. Again, here's our checklist. I guess this is being recorded. You can get this. If you can't, then Ann can provide you with all these notes, so you don't really need to take notes, but good checklist to go. Self-scoring. So what you want to do is you're looking through your application, or you're thinking about a project. This is a competitive situation, right? So in the springtime, you're going to have to go through and look at your numbers and make sure that you fit. And Ann's pushing me forward, but this is really important. Look at that self-scoring sheet and think about your project. I will tell you this, historically, and I don't know, since the grant has gone from 25% to 40%, we've seen a much bigger influx of people interested in the grant, obviously because of the numbers, and the tax credit going from 26% up to 30%. That's pretty crazy money out there. And so it is a competitive situation. In the spring, it traditionally has been very competitive. The smaller projects in the fall have not been very competitive. So that's the time to buy your power shed. It falls right under the number, and you can get that old patent pending robotic Roomba mower out there. I really want to get to the numbers. So grant process, grant awards, we went through that, and here's a financial model. So what we start out with is helioscope, right? So there's a million tools out there. What helioscope does is help us design solar without leaving our desk, so we can get a very rough idea of what is possible. And that's all it is. It's what is possible. Until we get a technical site visit, we don't know. So helioscope is a paid for subscription type program that we use. And we also use a program called Aurora for residential. It gives you historical weather data. It allows you to match up specific brands of products. Now, for yourself, what I would suggest, if you just want to get a rough idea of things, use PV Watts. So PV Watts is free. It's by NREL, and you can get on that and you can get a good idea. Now, I will tell you this, if I give you a proposal or Scenic City gives you a proposal, I can talk. I promise I haven't been drinking. It's still early for me even. But so if they do a proposal or anybody else, you can simply just take those numbers and put them into PV Watts and just get a ballpark. They're not going to match. I promise you they won't match, because there's going to be angles and there's going to be just the way it's set, it'll be slightly different, but at least you'll get a ballpark. From that, when in helioscope, it's going to give us month by month. So it's kind of representing, throughout the year, what that process is going to be. Now, we can certainly, depending on the design, we can certainly change the angle of the azimuth. So whether it's due south or it's southeast or southwest, we can give it a bias. So we can give it a winter bias. And again, a lot of we're in a dual meter, and I don't know if that means anything to you at this point, but it does mean something in design, right? So in dual meter, we're right now designing everything to be behind the meter. You're consuming everything you produce as you produce it, right? In some cases, we'll use a DPP program, but for the majority, we're trying to design so you're independent of any other program. That said, we may suggest that, your business peak is in the afternoon, so we may bias your solar to work better in the afternoon or work better in the morning. Just depends on your energy profile. So energy monitoring is a great first step. If you're thinking about doing something, installing energy monitoring will give you a true profile. And especially if you're in a commercial business where you're getting demand charges. I got 5 minutes, gee whiz. So there's some solar panels on the roof. And this page is probably the most important page. This is kind of a summary of our project. Microphones are tough for me. So in this particular case, it's custom controls. They're in Cleveland, Tennessee. It's a 76.1 kW system. The estimated annual production is going to be 100,000 kilowatt hours. Where did we get that number from? From helioscope. Where can you get that number from? PV watts, right? Similar thing. So the rate is at 13 cents. And we break down the capital costs. And so we give you the major components on the capital costs. So the racking is, well, the labor's at 31,000, racking at 28. I'm going to jump down. The total is 195. I can barely see that. And so that cost, and so that's the lingo when you start comparing quote to quote, it's the cost per kilowatt. So it's 76.1 times 1,000. Right, and that'll give us the number of watts divided by you divide the number of watts into the amount, and we'll get a cost per watt. Right, so that's how you kind of get apples to apples. That's a very rough apples to apples. What we really want you to look at is levelized cost of energy. And what is levelized cost of energy? It's what your system's going to produce over 25 years, and then we take that number of kilowatts and we divide it into your final out-of-pocket cost. So that's after your incentives, after your USDA grant, what that final cost is, and divide it, that's your levelized cost. So you could actually spend more on solar panels, but it produces more, and your levelized cost over time will be reduced. So it's about efficiency. So your first number is watts, cost per kilowatt, but your real number that you want to do is levelized cost of energy. So if we look at this in our columns here, so we look at years, and so that year one that's highlighted is basically saying, well, you're going to get your payback in your first year. Your capital balance is 195. The production is 103 kilowatt hours at a utility rate of 13 cents. The first thing is the tax credit is 58,000. We're going to reduce that capital cost by your tax credit of 58,000. We're going to say your tax value, so of depreciation, if you're at a 25% tax rate, we're going to say that's going to be worth 41,000. And then our other incentives, that 97,000 is the 40% USDA grant. So you take your capital, total capital, and subtract the tax credit, the cash depreciation, your grant, and then the depreciation is a little bit tricky. We can talk about that a little bit later, but that's not exact. This number is correct, but it's not exactly 25%. You have to reduce your cost basis. The value of electricity is just simply the 13 cents times what it's going to produce. And as you notice in the production column, we reduce each year by 0.5%. So we're saying your system's going to degrade over time. We're trying to give you a conservative number. And so the value of electricity is going to actually decrease, but it could increase if we use an escalator. And we're using an escalator. I think in this model, we're using an escalator of 3%. You probably have experienced more rates of 20% this year, maybe even as high as 30%. But we're using an escalator of 3%, again, being conservative. If you have any kind of demand savings, that would go in that. We estimate a number, this is a budgetary number, is the O&M. So we're assuming that over time, a squirrel's going to chew through a wire, or your panels are going to get soiled because of pollen and we have to clean them, or an inverter. So the weakest link generally is an inverter, right, Bill? I mean, we've had them blow up over there. But because of the utility, not because of us. I want to make sure that's clear. And then this is a column that most solar companies won't show you. It's your tax on savings. You've got all this money, and you've reduced your operating expense, guess what? You're more profitable. We said your tax rate's 25%. So what we do is we show you what that tax rate is. And so that gives you a real true annual cash flow, and it gives you a very conservative thing. Now, we generally put that in the numbers. I've definitely had businesses is once we get those in there, they get down the path, they're like, take that out, because they want to show like the straight without the taxes, but there's still a tax consequence no matter how you look at it. So then it shows your cash flow in the first year is 173,000 positive. So you've got in the second year, you've got 22,000 remaining. And so you can see how that goes along. So solar to me is a balance sheet argument. It's not necessarily a cash flow or a checkbook argument. So we're talking about building wealth. We're talking about building equity. And it was that example I gave of Wampler's Farm Sausage, that they took something, they leveraged it into something else, they leveraged it into something else. And Ted Wampler will tell you that we have increased his business equity by 6.5 million, and he didn't kill one hog to do it. So that to me is a pretty strong message about what we can do for your company and what any solar company, along with partners like the USDA, can do. So if we're talking about balance sheet items and equity, then it stands to reason this inventory model is what we call it, is essentially saying that I bought all this solar, I know what it's going to produce after 25 years, I'm going to put it in inventory. And so what I can allowed to do is take so much out of inventory every year. What is the value of that? Well, we talked about levelized cost of energy. This is an unfair example because in this case, with all the incentives and the tax credits, you end up with a negative cost. So every time you produce something, it's trying to make up for the money you made off of that, right? So let's just say that your levelized cost of energy is a penny. I take it out of energy, it costs me 1 penny. If I had to buy it from the utility and it cost me 14 cents, I saved immediately 13 cents on that kilowatt hour right then and there. So that's exactly how your inventory works. If you said, I am going to build houses for the next 25 years, and I know I need this many lumber packages, which is a ridiculous analogy, but I'm going to buy this much package because I know I can buy it for this price. Every time you pull that package out, you know what the value is, but you put it in the inventory. And then as prices increase, your price stays the same because it's inventory. Now there's a cost of money to that, but we can calculate that in there. But your immediate savings in this particular case is for almost $14,000 a year. And so over time, if you use an inventory model, you can really see what it is and the value of it from an equity standpoint. So again, just another way of looking at it. So I usually say at the beginning of these conversations, I usually say, if you want to put solar on your home or in your business, I can give you 100 reasons why to do it. If you don't want to put solar in your home or your business, I can also give you 100 reasons not to do it. So it's just a matter of your paradigm. If this is important to you, if saving money is important to you, and then this inventory model is going to be golden for you. If it's cash flow, what we do is we try to work and make sure it's under 7 years. But with the way the IRA and the USDA grant money has come out this year, essentially, if you just use loose numbers, it's 95% paid for. I lost 100 reasons why you shouldn't do it. I mean, I got nothing for you. There's the only thing I can say is that you need to either talk to us or Scenic Solar, and there's Light Waves in Nashville. They're a very reputable company as well. So after that, I'm kind of falling short on solar companies, but certainly Scenic Solar, Light Waves, Solar Alliance are going to be very reputable companies. And I'm sure there's other ones out there, but those are the three that come to the top of my mind that I know that you're going to be in good hands with whatever you do. There's Teddy. I have this great picture of Ted Wampler and Bill Keener in front of that Wampler's Farm Sausage, and they're the exact opposites, right? So Bill, I don't know, what are you, 6'2" or something? Yeah, and Teddy's what, 5'1"? So we've got these two guys standing next to each other, and Ted Wampler is gonna put solar on his building and he's gonna make money and put kids through school and he's gonna create employees and do all this stuff and he's gonna take over the world. And he is the most conservative Republican in the universe. I guess he's more of a libertarian, love the guy to death. And then Bill Keener has got more degrees than I think anybody in this room probably doesn't even know what degrees he has. And he's going to put solar and he's going to save the world and he's going to give us clean air and he's going to give us fresh food. And they come from very different politics, but they came to the same conclusion. That's the beauty of what we're talking about. It doesn't really matter what you want to do, whether you want to be profitable and make money. We all want to have a good living. We all want to increase our community. But how we do that through quality of life or through financial, same thing. It all comes back to this solar and partners like USDA. We're very fortunate to have hardworking USDA field reps. And so again, their job is to get this money here in Tennessee. So help them do their job. Come up with a project, get with them, and then move forward on that. I probably am over time. So I'm going to leave it for questions. Yes.
But before we get to that, I do want to make a shout out, especially for the purpose of the recording, for questions about the Inflation Reduction Act. We did just have a great lunch and learn in November with a tax expert that had a good overview of what to expect from Inflation Reduction Act benefits. Just want to note that.
And that is the person you want to talk to, because none of us in this room are qualified to give you tax advice. And so we definitely want his name or her name. Yeah, we would love to share that name with you all, because that's super important for you to understand and navigate through this, because the IRA is still very confusing. On the accelerated depreciation, I still don't know how it's done. I still don't know how it's done, and we're mid through January. So I know how you're going to be safe, but I don't know how you can really leverage it. So yeah.
Jay?
Yeah, does the REAP grant require you to be tied into the grid?
Can you
No.
repeat the question?
Does the REAP grant require you to be tied into the grid? No. You do have to show operation for 30 days. And so, we have to have some sort of monitoring to basically show that. When it's tied into the grid, it's just very easy to do. Like, there's no extra thing. So like on energy efficiency, I will say this, you have to have a third party endorsement on it. So a third party has to basically say, this is the baseline, this is what I expect, I'm signing off on this. And then each year you're going to report what your energy savings was. And so you don't need that third party at the beginning, but it's one extra step on energy efficiency. Just like if you're off grid, it's one extra step. Now, there was some tricky stuff about batteries and stuff, and we're not going to even talk about that, but that is something, I don't even know if it's still a thing, but as long as it's part of the system. But what I understood was we couldn't do batteries by themselves. Okay.
Now you can, with Inflation Reduction Act, get tax benefits
For the battery.
batteries. Yeah, both by themselves and that's part of a system,
Right.
but that's separate from the
The USDA, yeah. So, and I wouldn't let that discourage you, because, I would still apply for a USDA for whatever. And then if it crosses up, just like, in the fall, let's say you had a project that is $100,000 and the cap is at 80 for the capital project. You still apply for it, but you can only apply for 80 and you're leaving 20 on the table. Who cares at this point at 75%? I mean, I'm not trying to tell you to be sloppy with your money, but this gives you a lot of wiggle room.
That reminds me that one other important thing to note is that TVA has a new board. And several of those board members have a lot of solar experience. And we expect there to be additional programs from TVA moving into the future than we've seen over the past like 4 years, where there was definitely a downward trajectory in TVA support for distributed solar. So that's just something to keep an eye out for. We don't know exactly what that's gonna look like, other than we expect it to improve. Would
Right.
you agree with that?
No, I would definitely agree with that. And what I wanted to comment on is if you looked at the summary of the IRA and it says all the folks that are eligible, they talk very generically about industries, so this industry is eligible, this industry is eligible. And at the very last sentence, it says, and Tennessee Valley Authority. So that's pretty specific, so they actually called out that power producer. They didn't call out any other utility. They've said, co-ops, utilities and stuff like, they were very vague. But TVA is very clearly called out. So there will be a lot of money that I'm assuming because of that call out is going to go through TVA, and they got to figure out what kind of programs. Now, I'm going to say that I think that, and again, I'm not contradicting what you're saying. TVA has, yes, pushed the program backwards. It's gone down. But the thing is TVA, when they did that 21 cents at the very beginning, that's what got our early adopters.
Yeah.
That's what got people like Bill, Ted Wamplers, Randy McFarland, or Randy DeBoard and McFarland Farms. That's what got all those early adopters. That's what got around downtown Chattanooga. So TVA has brought the program down, but also a lot of times, we look at the numbers. So I will say this, the first system that I put in, first commercial system I put in was a small houseboat. And when I say commercial, that it wasn't through TVA program. And so it was a houseboat. And when I bought, because they wanted to blow dry their hair on the lake, right? That made a lot of sense, but they paid me a lot of money to do it, so I'm fine. But the solar panels was $5.35 a watt. $5.35. That's just the solar panel. That wasn't the inverters, the what, none of that. And now I'm quoting, what we're billing customers for solar panels is about 71 cents a watt. You can look at those numbers, but it's about 71 cents a watt. That's a big change. So, I think we're very fortunate to have TVA. You guys in the EPB territory, they're very aggressive with all their programs with EV chargers. You guys are way ahead, smart switching, resiliency. So, this is a great area and you get a lot of support from the utilities. Up here, you're getting some support from TVA. You just don't know it. You probably see it as an agitation, but they're doing something. So, yeah.
Other questions? Maddie, are there any questions online? Okay,
All right. Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And if you need anything, let us know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you, Michael.
I love what you do. Thanks again, Chris. Thanks for everybody for coming out today, and we'll see you soon. Save the date for green drinks. What's the green drinks will be the 25th. We're working on the location for that, so stay tuned, but we hope to see you then. Have a great day.